Jamell is going to give a spotlight talk based on his paper that Jamell presented this morning at the virtual panel. Again, Jamell is a fourth-year PhD student at Michigan State University. His work focused on examining subjectivity in textual data and linguistic analysis and social media behavior. By examining the stereotypical societal biases in NLP technologies, Jamell narrows in on conceptualizing social harms arising from advancements of language technologies, highlighting both positives and negatives social impacts. He was fortunate to be awarded University Enrichment Fellowship by the Graduate School at MSU and an NSF Research Traineeship Impacts Fellowship. Without further ado, please welcome Jamell.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jamell. You can call me Mel. This is very interesting that I can't even see the screen. But can you, everyone, hear me clearly? Because everyone see my smile? Yeah, great. I tend not to take myself too seriously. So I'm from Trinidad and Tobago, and the lifestyle there is a bit harder than the US. So moving here, I was like, when people talk about privilege, living in the US is like really nice. So I try not to take myself too seriously and think about the past, think about the future, and going by the quote, be the change you want to see, right? So today I'm going to talk about, just move this a little bit. Today I'm going to talk about a paper that I have accepted to the Queer and AI workshop called Detecting Harmful Online Conversational Content Towards LGBTQIA plus individuals. So as a quick disclaimer, there's raw data in here from Reddit that may have profanity and be very vulgar. So this is a quick disclaimer that some of the language in here may be offensive and may cause some negative feelings to anyone viewing, okay? So just a quick disclaimer. I'll tell you when the slides are coming up so you can close your eyes or something, all right? So social media. Everyone here has a phone. Some people are on it, some people are not. Some people took pictures yesterday. Some people post pictures of their cat, their dog. Social media is basically it right now. You can do whatever you want on it. You can be whoever you want to be. You can do whatever you want to do on social media. Social media actually plays a major role in escaping the real world. You have so much, say, you have an offline appearance, but even in video games, social media, you can customize your character, you can be whoever you want, whatever you want, you can change your name. Like in the real world, you have pronouns that are assumed, where online, you can put whatever you want, whenever you want. However, social media is a place that also is very hostile because there are people with different beliefs and they have very different tastes and can be very discriminatory practices. So the social media still remains hostile. It's very exclusive to certain individuals. It's very restrictive, and it can be a very controlling place when it comes to gender, sexual orientation, race-related topics, and especially LGBTQIA individuals as a community. So to address these above problems of being a hostile environment, being restrictive, controlling, and exclusive, we attempt to detect several forms of toxicity in the comments geared towards the LGBTQIA individuals to finally try to create a safe, inclusive place for these individuals. So by running the data through a classifier, it automatically detects toxicity. And we use a human in the loop paradigm to measure the effectiveness of this classifier. So you guys were just viewing the panelists, which gave really good insights of how gender should be used and how to include the community. So in this work, it's not just technological, but we try to include the community of these people who are directly affected by these words. And then lastly, we want to accurately identify and detect this harmful conversational content in social media comments, so that machine learning algorithms that are used on every social platform, not just to recommend a new video on TikTok, recommend something on your explore feed on Instagram, or the next reel on your Facebook, Meta, which is, right? But we need to create deep learning, machine learning technologies, AI technologies that can readily identify, detect, and remove these harmful content. So a quick disclaimer again, these comments are directly from Reddit. Some comments are very distasteful, and users are blocked constantly on Reddit, which is one of the most open online conversational platforms in the world. So we adapted the Reddit bias dataset. So a Reddit bias dataset has 5 dimensions. So the 5 dimensions, they have religion, they have comments that talk about Christianity that cross with people who believe in Islam, who have different religious beliefs. There's Christians versus Jews, there's whites versus blacks, and there's straight people who are homophobic against LGBTQIA individuals, activists, and allies. So we took these comments and we ran them through Detoxify. Detoxify was an algorithm that can define and distinguish 6 different forms of toxicity in comments, in any text, actually. So Detoxify is a machine learning algorithm that uses BERT, which I can talk about later, which is a very large language model, very popular, and very, like, in the AI community, very, very well known. So we used the Detoxify, and Detoxify, what it does, it classifies these comments into 6 distinct categories and their probabilities that go from 0 to 1, classifying how harmful they are in each category. But staring at these numbers doesn't really mean much, right? So what we did, we tried to give them a hard number. And what do I mean by a hard number? Well, these probabilities go from 0 to 1. So a good interval would be, if it's 0.5 or 50% or more, we can classify it as harmful, right? And if it's less than 0.5%, we can classify it as non-harmful. So these are the counts, which are harmful to the left and non-harmful to the right, which is great because the non-harmful comments outweigh the harmful comments, which is great. But honestly, there's way too many harmful comments. So how can we use this and employ a human in the loop paradigm? Well, first we employ 15 AMT annotators. So each annotator is either LGBTQIA individual, an activist, or an ally. So they know how bad the internet could be when it comes to saying who you are, coming out online, which is not something a lot of people do because they're very scared of the hostility that they get. So after getting the AMT workers, what we did, we used Outright. So if you guys don't know what Outright is a nonprofit organization for LGBTQIA individuals, and they collect sources. They constantly update their pronouns, and they have definitions where they can teach anyone and educate everyone on different pronouns, relationships, gender identities, anything that you really want to learn. It's it's an open source platform that you can keep adding, and you can educate yourself more on LGBTQIA related topics. So we tasked these, ooh, that was kind of hard. So we tasked these annotators with two conditions. So they have to indicate whether a comment is toxic or non-toxic, or harmful or non-harmful, right? So they had two conditions. So the first one, we randomly sampled 1,000 comments in total, and we gave them, each annotator, each one of the 15 annotators, 1,000 comments. They're very short. They're relatively about the average sentence, which is like about 9 words per sentence. So we gave them 1,000 sentences. I'm very sure that within the last week, most of you guys have probably sent 1,000 text messages, you know. So it wasn't that much. So the two tasks is, if the comment is seen as non-toxic, you can simply discard the text. Very simple. But if it's seen as toxic, then you can the annotators are given 5 additional labels. So the 5 additional labels are severe toxicity, obscene, threat, insult, and identity attacks. So to do this, we have some experimental settings, because we're looking at it not just from a societal point that involving the community to annotate this data, but also from a technological standpoint. So by saying this, we have these 5 models. So the baseline models are actually logistic regression, which is very well known, which is a very popular model, and SVM. So these are 2 linear models that try to distinguish if it's simply toxic or non-toxic. And then we have 3 large language models. So these 3 large language models are BERT, and then derivatives of BERT, which are Roberta and HateBERT. So Roberta actually uses less parameters than BERT. So it works just as fast, but it's not as computationally expensive. And HateBERT is actually BERT that is not fine-tuned, but retrained. So they just took BERT and retrained it on hate speech text from Reddit as well. So we have some experimental results, and we see here that there's a heavy correlation with toxicity, identity attacks, and insult and obscene. So moving forward, we use the F1 score for each model to show the overall performance. So we can see this is pretty hard to read, but we can use these bars to quickly see the performance of each model. So for each model, we can see BERT horizontally in table 3 outperforms the rest of the models. Especially in table 4, it's highlighted that the overall performance of BERT heavily outweighs the rest. Well, we tried to do these more for each label. So what does that mean? So we took each label, and we had the toxic or harmful class and the non-harmful class. Well, this table is also really hard to read. So let's make it a little easier. So each model, their results are all vertical, and we see in the class for each label, harmful and non-harmful, that BERT also has really good accuracy in detecting both harmful and non-harmful comments for each label. What does this mean? So if we use this large language model on social media platforms, that it can be used to readily identify harmful content, which we can use technology to remove these comments quickly before affecting and having negative societal impacts. So why does BERT outperform HateBERT? Well, there might be a difference in task from the data used to train HateBERT, which is offensive and abusive language in the data that HateBERT was trained on. And BERT was actually trained on 3.3 billion words. That's why it's so popular, that it has more flexibility to learn more word and sentence embeddings. So So in this paper, we conducted a systematic evaluation of harmful comments geared towards the LGBTQIA community by real Reddit users. So despite HeyBert being pre-trained for hate speech and abusive language detection, BERT outperformed all our proposed baseline models and large language models because of its flexibility. And we intend to release our multi-labeled data set for future shared tasks so that we can not just simply rely on BERT, hate BERT, and Roberta, but we could also train more language models as well. So thank you guys very much.